radio, NTDO 212, com check.
DPS, go. Inco, go. PUS, go. Surgeon, go. Booster, go. Copy that. We have a go from you guys.
This is Talking Sound.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the Talking Sound podcast, coming to you straight from Houston, Texas. While I am on the road at work, I am Chris Jordan, your host, and with me tonight is Jacob Delmar, freak man extraordinaire, also known as a frequency coordinator in the industry. Such an important job, things that we don't realize, especially nowadays with the modern technology that we have with Bluetooth, with Wi-Fi, things like that. Frequency coordination, whether it be in a live venue situation or whether it be in a live corporate situation in a hotel or in a bar, is so important. Jacob, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
Absolutely. I've worked with you for quite a few years
now.
Yeah, and you're one of the best freak mans I know. You take an extreme passion in what you do. Explain to our audience who may not know exactly what the position of a frequency coordinator on site, whether it be on a tour for a band or in a corporate situation, exactly what it is that you do.
Well, here's a long answer for a short question. So, understanding that wireless microphones operate using the electromagnetic spectrum. The electromagnetic spectrum is a finite thing. So when you're trying to accomplish, let's go with like a festival or a corporate environment, which are kind of similar.
What we're on right now.
Well, what we're on now is a corporate environment. So let's go with that. That's the easiest place to start.
Well, and an extreme example.
An extreme example on this particular show. In support of the event we just finished, I had over 200 frequencies, all on air running simultaneously across 3 different venues, all within a block of each other.
Yeah.
And really the job is not controlling the airwaves as much as it is acting like an air traffic controller.
Sure. So
an air traffic controller calls planes into a physical space, and there's only so much physical space that you can push that 10 into. And it's kind of similar with the wireless microphones because and that's being a wireless microphone or let's say a wireless camera hop for an ENG crew,
Sure.
which is how you send your
Video
main audio
over.
feed wirelessly to a camera or remote record device.
Absolutely.
Or even in-ear monitors in a festival situation where you have bands. You are
or even radios
between crews. Two-way radio communication.
Absolutely critical.
You are managing different swatches of the airspace, and you allow different sections of your event to use different parts of the airspace so that you can have X number of wireless transmitters all cohabitating all together at the same time. Whereas in a festival, typically you're dealing with 1 or 2 stages. In a corporate environment, let's say in particular in this show where I have a single ballroom that's cut up into multiple breakout rooms and very close adjacent to each other with no real structure between, maybe only what's called an air wall, which is a temporary structure. How do you get multiple channels of wireless microphones within a close proximity of each other all to kind of live and cohabitate together? In this particular event, I believe I had between 80 and 90 channels of wireless, all within one ballroom, separated by air wall.
Oh, it was an insane
how
amount.
do you make that work?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if that's quite the definition you're looking for.
No, that's the exact definition that I'm looking for because it is an air traffic controller. It's the fact that you are relegating certain frequencies to certain areas.
Which is a physical space upon the electromagnetic spectrum.
Absolutely. And not only that, but the logistics involved behind doing that, behind getting with house crew and saying, hey, what radio channels are you using? What radios are you using so I know what frequencies? Because, hey, Motorola is different than another company.
Well, and then,
as far as channels
in entertainment with microphones, you're dealing with, multiple vendors. But here's the things a lot of people fail to realize. Even though your spread, wow, words are hard. Even though and ladies and gentlemen, we're enjoying a few gin and tonics and some beers here, and I know I've now been drinking for 10 hours. I do apologize if I do a little slur here.
It's okay, Mr. Delmar.
It doesn't matter what the brand, what the make is. At the end of the day, we're all playing with the same piece of real estate. There's a certain amount of the electromagnetic spectrum, which is a finite thing.
It's physics.
That, we have to divvy up so that everyone can play nice.
Yeah.
So, the easiest way to accomplish this is to give the most real estate, if you will, to each microphone as possible so that you can have the most interference-free show possible. Because, especially in the corporate environment, the goal is perfection. Mm-hmm. The goal is not sort of working, kind of working. And honestly, when you do corporate, just from an audio perspective, you have maybe 1, 2, 6, 8 mics on stage, and it's speech.
Sure.
Well, the difference between doing entertainment and spoken word is that with entertainment, like let's say you have a rock band on stage and you're doing festivals where you have one set stage and multiple people coming in and out.
Yeah.
You can hide a little. If your lead vocalist might gets a little RF interference, you can kind of hide that because there's so much information coming through the PA.
I worked festivals, I worked clubs for years, and there's an allowance for a certain amount of slop until things get sussed out.
Whereas in the corporate environment, or let's say a church even,
it must be perfection from go.
Because you're exposed.
That's it.
And the least little bit of RF interference is so obvious because you are so exposed.
Yep.
A lot of guys that do rock and roll look down on guys that do corporate, and they're like, oh, you're just doing a couple of things at one time. But it's the same engineering principles from a different perspective. When you're doing rock and roll, there are a lot more places to hide.
Yes.
When you do corporate, it's just
you're
spoken word, you're completely, when it's just human voice, you're completely exposed.
That's it.
And often in a corporate environment, we end up with panels.
Yeah.
4, 6, 8, 10, 20, 12, 30 people who are all going to be on stage at the same time. Their microphones all have to be open at the same time. And if there's the least little bit of interference, because it's only human voice and spoken word, there's a lot of gaps in there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of air. There's a lot of space.
Yes.
And if you get RF interference within that, it is
quite obvious.
Instantly recognizable and quite obvious that something has gone wrong.
I came from the rock and roll world and the church world into corporate. Mm-hmm. And in the medium had broadcast. Mm-hmm. And I loved broadcast because it was number one, I did studio work and it was cool. Mm-hmm. And it was all right. I've worked with people in studios. I know
studio work is my passion.
I know. For me, it is such a repetitive and cold process, though. Mm-hmm. I loved working with jam bands and things like that because though there was a structure, it was different every time. Mm-hmm. And there was a real synergy that happened between the stage and the soundboard. And that's very much what I akin corporate AV to. The show that we did this week for 7 days will be a totally different show next year. Mm-hmm. The sets will be different. Everything else. And as opposed to sitting there with 28, 32 channels of audio in a club environment, I'm sitting there with 6 to 8 channels of audio.
That all have to be perfect.
That all have to be perfect in a room to where everybody in the room can hear it equally. The speaker on stage can hear it. And 2 cameras have to get it, mm-hmm. while a live feed gets it, mm-hmm. as well as a backup record.
And that's not saying that one is more difficult than the other. It's just a different concept.
That's it.
In engineering.
That's it.
But we're not here to talk about mix.
No.
What we're here to talk about is radio frequency.
And that's just it. Whenever you're talking about all those things in one place, that's where radio frequency coordination comes in. Because absolutely, you could go out and you could get even all of the same band of microphones. And
hang on a second, but before you make that point, we needed to make some definitions.
Yes, let's do that.
Because a lot of people don't understand this. So let's take manufacturers. Let's take one of the most ubiquitous ones, Shure Brothers. Shure Brothers.
Absolutely.
So Shure Brothers
Industry
makes microphones. It's industry standard stuff. Shure, Sennheiser, any of them, they all operate in the same way. You have a finite amount of electromagnetic spectrum. And one of the ideologies there, the old school, is that you create microphones that work in particular bands. And all a band is a particular chunk of the electromagnetic spectrum that microphone will operate in.
Exactly.
So it's a limiting factor. So let's say, 470, which is the low end of the UHF spectrum, to 515 hertz.
Yeah.
So and that would be a band. And then you would pick up at 515 to whatever.
Yeah.
Let's say 530, and that's another band. I'm not exactly quoting Shure stats here, but just that's how they operate.
That is the generalized concept of operation.
Right. And some people say, well, I have Shure mics and you have Sennheiser mics, so we should be fine. But
no.
But the actuality of the situation is, you're still sharing the same piece of the electromagnetic spectrum.
That's right.
And what one manufacturer calls this band, another manufacturer has a different name for it.
That's right.
And you have to look into manuals or wireless compatibility charts or have software that tells you, oh no, all these guys play in the same airspace.
Yeah.
So, case in point, the show we just did, since that's an easy one to come down to. I had Shure microphones, I had Sennheiser microphones, and I had electrosonic microphones. That was the three main players that I had. I don't think I had anything beyond that.
Yeah.
But let's say a Shure G-band microphone, G50, G5, G57, they all share a similar band to, like, say, Sennheiser A-band.
Yeah.
Which is Electrosonics Block 19. And they all interact within this same airspace. They're called different things, but they all interact.
Sure.
So you have to understand that each manufacturer, while calling it a different thing, at the end of the day, they're actually playing in the same airspace.
Yeah.
And you have to understand how to separate that.
And it's a limited airspace is the thing. It's
the
becoming more and more
spectrum
limited.
is a finite thing, and the FCC and the FCC defines
physics.
Areas.
Physics number one defines.
Well, physics defines. But then,
Then the FCC says this is what you get within what physics defines.
Right. So the electromagnetic spectrum, what it runs, as we've defined it and as we've learned to measure in megahertz, the FCC has then taken that and divvied up. I tell you, if you can Google the FCC allocation charts.
Yes.
That will really spin your head around to see how the FCC has taken 2 to 20,000 megahertz and divvied it up between things like military communications, emergency communications,
FEMA,
digital TV.
Yep.
There is actually a block in the center of the UHF spectrum, which we're allowed to use, that the FCC actually has blocked out for radio astronomy.
Oh, wow.
That's right in the center of us. I mean, all these different things come into play. And you have to be able to read all of this data, understand all this data, and know where things can play. That's where software tools such as Sennheiser's Wireless System Manager or Shure's Wireless Workbench, or the guys that live on top the heap, and in my opinion, some of the best in the country, Professional Wireless Systems out of Orlando, which is a mass sound company. They have a product called IAS.
Okay.
And IAS allows you it has programmed within it all of these different definitions and helps keep you in the right, place.
Yeah.
And understands that, here's certain definitions where the FCC says this or the FCC says that, or when we're in Houston, Texas, these are the digital TV channels.
Well, and, of course, whenever it comes to large shows, whenever it comes to that kind of stuff, and it's always good. Even if you're an individual operator coming into a hotel environment, coming into a large RF environment, period. If you were to go and put on your band show at Astro World or Six Flags, yeah, you'd need to know some RF frequencies. Like, hey, typically at the bar, I can just turn on my microphone and turn on the receiver, and we're ready to go.
And you can
Bam.
find your gaps around. And really the worst
Sure.
thing you're dealing with in that environment are TV channels and FCC blocks. Well, the nice thing is the manufacturers have pretty much built in the known FCC blocks. So
Yeah.
like J-band Shure wireless microphones, be J50, J5, whatever, and even G57 with the newer Accent models, which
Sure.
is their high-end touring stuff now. They know they will not tune to those frequencies that the FCC is blocked because the manufacturers know those exist and they build that in. So
Yeah.
that keeps you a little safe. If you're doing a low channel count at a bar, it's pretty easy to find
Sure.
what you need. And, you know, a lot of people, like guys that are, you know, bar musicians or podcasters or whatever, they'll buy cheaper low-end wireless systems
Yep.
that are fixed frequency
Mm-hmm.
or narrow band, but at the same time, they've built
Well,
those
I'm not going to
assignments in
lie.
that
I've
they
got
know.
an old school Shure system, and it's channel 1 through 19.
Yeah.
And that's all I need for any bar or venue
Yeah,
or
'cause you-
Mikomoto auction
And
that I
you
need to
just
go.
dial around and find what you need.
For me to be from here to the end of that
Mm-hmm.
wall to say, hey, everybody, guess who just won the prize wheel? That's all I need.
But the bigger thing we're thinking of is, well, what if you're in an environment such as the one we were in, you know, today,
Exactly.
where, you know, this week, where I have 90 channels of wireless all coexisting within a ballroom? How do you
Yeah.
make that work?
Yeah. How do you coordinate?
How do you coordinate that? My initial process in that is that I actually create a Excel document.
Okay.
And in an Excel document, I actually draw, using borders within Excel,
Yeah.
the physical layout of the environment I'm going to be dealing with. So, like, case in point here, there's a large session in the center with
Yep.
many breakout rooms around it.
I was privy to this.
And I drew this out in Excel. And within that, I started building, okay, well, what's the biggest priority? Well, the big room's the biggest priority, so you start there. You do
Yep.
that first. Ooh, doubling up cocktails there. We're enjoying some quite fun
That's how
gin
you-
and tonics from the lobby bar right now.
That's how you wreck it, bro.
And so you go with your biggest performance area first. That's
Yeah.
where I like to start because that's, you know, for me, the highest priority area.
Exactly.
So I
Exactly.
assign them frequencies, and I go as far as to assign them backup frequencies. So let's say in this environment, I needed 12 channels for microphones, and let's define what a channel is. For me, when I'm talking about a wireless microphone, I'm talking about channels. What I'm referring to is a unique ID, which for our microphones is a 6-digit number,
Yep.
and that is the airspace that microphone plays in. So if I
3
need,
on the front, decimal 3 on the back.
correct. So if I need 12 microphones, I call that 12 channels of wireless.
Sure.
I need 12 unique frequencies, 12 channels that I need to be able to give those microphones. Well, then we were also dealing with wireless communications with telex systems, which
Yeah.
are BTR 800s, which is a wireless full duplex two-way communication
Yeah.
system that interfaces with hardwired intercom systems that we use. So that requires, for a 2-channel operation, that requires 2 transmit frequencies,
Mhm.
and those base stations just happen to ID 4 belt packs. So each one of those belt packs has an individual receive frequency. So that's another 6 channels on top of
Sure.
12. So that's 18 channels just for the main room, plus backups for all of that. So I
Yeah.
think all in total, without pulling out my paperwork, I believe they had G57 Shure Accents.
Yeah.
They had G50 Shure ULXD, which is a specific model. You can look all this stuff up.
Sure.
And then 6 channels for a BTR 800. Oh, no, do your homework. And as the FCC once told me, do your homework.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's not just, you know, those channels. Now you're going to expand and you're going to give. So I need 8 channels, so I give them 12. They
Yeah.
need 4 channels.
Well,
I give them
and
8.
that's just it. As a the key comes into coordinator, and it's the fact that there are logistics involved, and you have to understand the fact that, especially dealing like Now, as far as a band going into a venue, a band going onto a national stage, doesn't matter. There is a known quantitative at that point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, despite anything, we have this plus this much backup.
There you go.
All right?
Well, and that's one, if you're going to a large venue, there should be someone there coordinating the wireless.
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
a lot of times, if you were talking about entertainment, like for bands, like let's say you're going I live in Dallas, Texas. So let's say you're going somewhere like Nokia Live.
Sure.
Somebody there, typically the monitor engineer, the front of house engineer, but a lot more times than not, it's a monitor engineer.
Yeah.
Will handle coordinating the wireless microphones for microphones, in-ears. He'll handle all your wireless frequencies, and he'll tell you, this is what I need you to be on.
Yeah.
That's what sound checks are for. Those large, and if you're doing concerts, you maybe have
but you're
one
looking
or two
at,
opening acts.
You're looking
plus
at
the main
8.
acts.
You're looking at 8 to 12 bands total.
I mean, in a festival situation, now band, we're talking about artists.
I'm talking about a bar.
Okay, so let's take it down to the bar. So at the bar, a lot of bars don't use wireless.
What?
They'll use hardwired mics. But let's say you have an artist that's coming in, and it is a group. And I'm gonna change my terminology here because the terminology that most lay people use. You start saying bands, well, that means a different thing to me.
Yeah,
a band is a piece of the RF spectrum.
That is absolutely
so. When we're speaking
true.
about coordination,
Channels,
you got to be careful
bands.
about channels, bands, and artists and
That's
groups. Right. So we're gonna say you have an act coming on that has 8 pieces. 8 different musicians. Mm-hmm. Well, the lead singer gets a wireless mic because he likes to jump around, so there's a channel. Yep. And then the whole band is on wireless in-ears. Well, let's say they're a 6-piece band. Well, that's 6 unique channels for wireless in-ears.
That's right.
Plus a 7th for the lead singer's wireless microphone because everybody else is tethered. Maybe they have wireless packs for their guitars and basses or various other instruments. It really doesn't matter if you're doing music, if you're doing entertainment, if you're doing corporate, it doesn't matter. The idea is that you give each individual wireless channel enough real estate between each other so that you're not stepping on. Mm-hmm. Well, direct hits are one thing. That's when one channel steps directly on another. Yeah. Well, think of wireless frequency like this. Take a handful of pebbles and throw it in a pond. When those rocks initially hit the water, each one creates a unique ripple. Imagine each one of those initial impacts as the actual channel you're going to tune your wireless frequencies to. Then you'll notice as you watch over time, those initial ripples will hit and interact and create other ripples. Well, the first time they hit, they create what's known as a third order harmonic. Yeah. And then when those third order harmonics hit each other, they create a fifth order harmonic. Yeah. When fifth order harmonics hit each other, they create a seventh order harmonic. So if we have any musicians out there, you understand what that is right off the bat.
That's right.
For anyone else, imagine
it's just in a range that only angels can hear.
For anyone that's not a musician, take a pencil, draw a downward arc and up. Well, there's your third order harmonic. Now draw another downward arc and up. There's your fifth order harmonic and down, up in a seventh, and so on and so forth. Odd orders. Well, when you have wireless microphones that are in a specific distance from each other, you can have a direct signal being interfered with a third order harmonic coming from another frequency. Well, now you have this third order harmonic interaction or a fifth order harmonic interaction, or even a lot of times you have an antenna distribution system for your wireless, and within that combining, you can have what's called a triple beat. Yeah. And these are all different things you have to watch out for. The easiest way to deal with this is to have good tools at your disposal in the modern world for me. Now, disclaimer, I'm very, very self-taught in this. Sure. My background is I am an audio engineer. I was a studio engineer that learned how to become a live engineer. who learned how to handle radios. And where I got my feet wet was at the North American Auto Show in Detroit.
Oh, wow. Huge show.
And when you do that
that's
show...
an incredibly
huge show. And what it's become and what it's turned into when I did it is you have... Literally, you're in a booth that's not much bigger than a breakout room in a corporate environment, which for people that don't understand what that is, that's just... Imagine taking a large space and splitting it up into 3 aisles, if you will.
Yeah.
And down those 3 aisles, every, 25 to 50 yards, you have a completely different stage. Imagine going
50 yards is that's huge.
And it isn't. It isn't. 50 yards, 25 yards.
It's more like about 100 feet.
So
between each room and
some are bigger
in a divided bar room.
In a divided, we're talking about a wide open space.
Yeah.
So in a wide open space with no architectural barriers, your wireless frequencies can travel a long way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what you realize very quickly is that you have to play nice with your neighbors. And typically at the auto show, there was never a frequency coordinator when I did it.
Yeah.
So you had to make friends with the guys on either side of you and be like, okay, what are you using? What are you using? Here's what I'm using. Let's talk. Let's communicate. Yeah. Let's understand that.
Let's coordinate.
We're all going to be rehearsing at the same time, even though our shows won't be going at the same time. Because at the auto show, the press starts at one end of the hall.
Yep.
And goes to the first booth. They do a 15-minute show. That show wraps. Then there's a 10-minute passing period where the press goes to the next booth. And they do a 15-minute show, 10-minute passing period. And this goes on all day for multiple days. And so during the time when they're doing these shows for the press, you're not allowed to rehearse. You're not allowed to make noise. You can't have your PA on. You can run anything that's silent, but nothing for audio. And then at the end of the day, once the press corps is done for the day, then you can be loud. Then you can rehearse and you can do whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
So I learned to make friends real quick, and I realized, I learned that, I'm going to have these specific frequencies, but I want to make sure that the people within X amount of range of me, we're all playing in different parts of the spectrum.
Yeah, the people that are 500-600 yards away from you, they don't matter. That you aren't stepping on them.
They don't matter. The people within 100 feet of me, they matter a lot.
Yeah.
And a lot of that has to do with transmission power.
Yep.
So understanding what your transmission power is. Like, here's a great case in point. So like I said, in this event, we had Shure's, Sennheiser, and Electrosonics. The Shure units we were using were typically 20 milliwatt transmitters. Now that doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people, and that's okay.
Let's make it mean a lot to a lot of people because this is an industry show as opposed to any other show.
Okay.
This is an industry show. Okay. So let's let people understand what a milliwatt is, what a watt is, where these terms come from, what they are, and how they interact.
So let's define that. Deci, milli, centi. So, when you're talking about graduation.
Damn, you just got really sexy on me.
When you're talking about, defining mathematical measurements. So, a milliwatt is 1,000th of a watt. The old Blackberries, the blue ones that had the keyboards and the monochrome screen, those were 5-watt transmitters.
Dude.
Those are heavy. That's a lot of radio pushing.
They were still, and to this day, a Blackberry is still one of the best machines you can get, and they're still a proprietary security system.
And that's why the government and a lot of corporations still use them. That's why RIM is still allowed.
Quite honestly, I want a Blackberry again. I miss my Blackberry so much.
Well, you need to go to work for the government and you'll get one.
Go ahead. Sorry. Please,
so
Mr.
I'm going to
find
like this. So, understanding the graduation there, and you guys can look that up, exactly how that breaks down. Typically, like Shure ULXD system, I think the average output power is 20 to 50 milliwatts.
Absolutely common system used in a lot of permanent installations.
Permanent installations, breakouts. They're not true diversity. They're into the switching. Which what that means is instead of like an Axient or a Shure UHFR, where they're essentially the unit is listening to both antennas at the same time, RF-wise, and cross-fading the audio between whatever antenna at that moment it has the best reception. A non-diversity system like a ULXD or a ULXP or a QLX system from Shure, again, that's the ones I use the most.
Yep.
Those actually
commonly seen on many sites.
Many corporate shows, especially in breakout
not
world.
just that, but I mean many professional touring shows as well.
Not so much. They tend to stick with the true diversity stuff. So the Axient and the UHFR, because they don't want the dropouts. Because the disadvantage of a non-true diversity system is that it's not listening to both antennas simultaneously. So you can totally tell by the unit you're looking at. If you have two antennas plugged into a wireless unit, but on the unit it has one RF meter, but then you'll see two lights, and what those lights are ketones, and what those ketones do is open the squelch. Okay. And what the squelch does is when it receives a specific carrier frequency, it opens up and allows audio to pass.
You just got into my brain because I'm an old school CB user. And
there you go.
Squelch is where it's at, baby.
Things, and it matters.
Oh, yeah.
And you can adjust the threshold with where
it's the fine tune, ladies and gentlemen. It's the fine tune.
So let's say a non-true diversity system like a ULXD, it's listening to one antenna, and then when the RF drops below a specified threshold, it will mute the audio for a split second.
Okay.
And switch over to receiving audio from the other antenna, and then open the audio channel back up again.
Yeah.
And what that sounds like is you have a presenter on stage, and then all of a sudden, they come right back.
Yep.
No, not the SHUP. Okay. The SHUP is the older systems.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The newer stuff, like for sure, because again,
it's just a drop and come back.
It's like someone hit mute for a second.
Yeah.
ULXDs, QLXDs, the digital stuff. They've gotten much better at handling that switching. An Axient or a UHFR basically crossfades between the audio, so you never have that dead space while it's switching, exactly where it's grabbing its audio path from.
Sure. Sorry.
Sure.
That was punny.
Was it punny? It was very punny.
That was horrible.
So, and again, back to the wattage. So, your typical Shure Sennheiser system, 20 to 50 milliwatts, right?
Yep.
Well, then I was also dealing with a major news network who had hired a local audio technician who does what's referred to as ENG.
Yes.
Or electronic news gathering.
That's right.
And the way to think about that, those are the guys you see with a harness and a big pack on their chest, and they have radios, and they have a mixer and a recorder, and they're swinging a boom microphone, and those are the guys that are running around basically collecting, either, capturing like documentary footage.
Nat pops, as it's called, natural sounds, people going up escalators, things like that.
I mean, and even going and doing man on the street type interviews and those kind of things. Those are guys that are running and guys that do stuff for TV. Well, those guys, most of them are FCC radio users, licensed radio users.
Yep.
And they're using electrosonic radios whose low power is 100 to 150 milliwatts.
Yep.
Well, when you're dealing with entertainment systems that are running 20 to 50 milliwatt, and then you got these ENG guys with 100 milliwatt because their radios are designed to work down the street.
Yeah.
Those guys have the potential to completely step on you and wipe you out at distance. So what I have to do in this instance is I have to coordinate and give them enough space that them running at their higher power doesn't step on my lower power microphones that are actually running inside the sessions.
Yep.
And really what it's about is giving everyone enough real estate, if you will, speaking about space on the electromagnetic spectrum, so that they can operate interference-free from each other. And there's many, many tools out there, like I said. Sennheiser Wireless System Manager, Shure's Wireless Workbench, and again, my favorite, the one that I use every day when I do this work, and that's Professional Wireless Systems IAS.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you this, because I've done quite a bit of on-site video, things like that, ENG, that kind of stuff that you're talking about. And how does somebody, A, go about getting the permit to use something like an electrosonic, to use something that is not the commonly available, go out to your Guitar Center or your Fry's Electronics and buy a wireless microphone, or go to Sam Ash, or some online service like Amazon.
Well, you can take the testing and apply for an FCC radio user's license, which is kind of similar to a ham radio user's license. And so most wireless microphones for entertainment purposes are what's called a UL device. Mm-hmm. And if anyone's ever owned a Bluetooth wireless or a cell phone or anything, you can look and see UL somewhere marked on it.
Yep.
And what that means is it's unlisted. And what that means is it does not require a radio license to operate.
And for those of you that have worked in small corporate environment and small church environment, things like that, these are very common in the Shure realm. They're called the ULX series.
It's any of the Shure stuff, to be perfectly honest.
I have a ULX, and it's literally like channels 1 through 19, and you dial in which one you want, and then you hit sync, and you hold the transmitter up to it, and it syncs. And you can't go in and tell it like, okay, I want channel 1 or group 1, channel 19, this frequency.
Mm-hmm. And that's like, the basic bitch version of it.
Yeah.
What you need to do when you get into more complex environments is you get away from the group and channel mentality, and you start dealing with the actual wireless frequency
exactly.
number. And that's the 6-digit 3.3 number.
Yeah.
3 digits, dot 3 digits.
Yep.
Because those group and channel correspondents have very little to do with the electromagnetic spectrum, and more to do with the actual unit that you're using. But when you dial in that group and channel, that actually corresponds to a specific, 3-digit, dot 3-digit number, which is a space on the electromagnetic spectrum. If you own any of those systems that are group and channel only, you can always download. If you go to that device's manufacturer, you can typically download what's referred to as a wireless compatibility chart.
Okay.
And then those charts are basically a big page that's a matrix that defines what group in the x-axis versus channel in the y-axis, what 3-digit, dot 3-digit number in the electromagnetic spectrum that corresponds to. Because at the end of the day, those group and channels mean very little other than to the specific manufacturer. And what really matters is the actual 3-digit, dot 3-digit channel designation. And that really defines your space on the spectrum. Because
those things step over each other all the time. And like I said, I've got a Shure ULX, and it's great. I love it. It's rock solid. I plug it in. It works. If I get interference, I scan for a channel, and then I sync, and it works. But I also have, for portable use, for corporate AV use, things like that, or not AV use, but more corporate film use, like Sennheiser units.
Mm-hmm. Like Sennheiser Evolution G3 or E2.
Yeah, exactly.
And and those are really
EW2s,
and those really operate very similarly on a 20 to 50 milliwatt range. Don't quote me, I don't know those model specifics. I don't know exactly what they're kicking out. But I know they don't kick out quite the power of the electrosonics, which is why they are in the price range that they are.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of your high-end broadcast and film work use those radios because they are a higher bandwidth, and they do require typically an FCC radio user's license to operate. And then when you go in a large environment, so the radio user's license is all well and good, but it doesn't allow you to do things like reserve frequencies.
Yeah.
That requires an FCC Part 74 license, which is kind of hard to obtain unless you are a venue or a large sound company.
Yeah.
Because I believe one of the thresholds for qualifying for that license is that you use 50 or more wireless channels on a regular basis within a month, which I think is 2 to 3 times a month. So someone like one of my clients, who typically I contract myself out to AV staging companies, they within themselves do large meetings where they have, where they use in excess of 50 channels of wireless at any given time. Well, that company can qualify for a Part 74 license and have someone on staff who is a custodian, essentially, of that license. And what that allows them to do, you can't reserve specific channels, but it allows you to reserve a section of the electromagnetic spectrum. A broad spectrum. But not a terrible amount, but a decent amount for their operation use. Yeah. And then at that point, so the FCC defines things like that as once you have that reservation, no one is allowed to induce interference upon your spectrum. You can impart interference upon others. They cannot impart interference upon you within your reservation. Yeah. And you have the legal power to basically go to someone who is interfering with you and say, I need you to shut that off.
Yeah, that needs to go away now. And what's sad is that I have an electrosonic IFB unit. Mm-hmm. And I'd love to use it. Like, it was just given to me by somebody in the industry, and they're like, here you go. Like, I'm out. I'm done. This may be something you might be able to use.
Enjoy your choice.
And it's freaking awesome. Mm-hmm. It's great.
However,
I need to go out and actively get a license to be able to use the thing.
As opposed to an unlisted device where you don't need a radio user's license, it is what's referred to as a listed device. And that requires an FCC radio user's license to operate.
Yeah, yeah. And, those are some of the things that people don't consider whenever they come into a hotel environment. Stuff like the frequencies being used by radio is by house. The frequencies being used by, and even here recently, it blew my mind. I have used what's called a catch box more than once.
That is a fantastic product, by the way.
I love them. They're great. Whoever came up with it,
company who
brilliant.
Came up with those, but that's a fantastic product.
Brilliant. Now,
I'll explain what that is because a lot of people don't know what those are.
Now, imagine the old concept of a Q&A mic.
And these are
question
for people,
and answer.
Well, and for people that do corporate events, they know what that is. So, but for the lay people,
so you're at a summit, you're at a conference, and or even a town hall.
A town hall. That's the best.
All right, that's the best, most common way to think about it. There are a couple microphones set up in the aisles. You have a question, you get in line. It's your turn to get up and speak. Now the difference is. With a catch box, it's literally a little foam box.
Oh, they're not little.
Well, I mean,
they're almost 12. They're 10 by 10. 10 by 10 cube.
The one that I was working with and the ones I've worked with are about 7 by 7, about the size of this Kleenex box here. And they're really cool. They're made out of foam. And what's awesome is that the ones I've typically worked with, you use your own lapel mic. And you put it in there, and you can dial in whatever frequency you want.
Well, you use your body pack transmitter.
Yes, exactly.
The catch box itself has a magnetic carriage inside that has its own microphone element, and that you plug in.
And exactly. But you're able to change your frequency at will and do whatever you need to do as a frequency coordinator. And those are the ones that I've worked with. Now, the event that I worked recently had one that was a fixed frequency. Fixed. I am not even joking. First day, catch box worked great. And these things are cool, man. Like, it's just this little...
Well, here's the thing. And the advantage of the catch box is between the body pack transmitter, which is held inside the unit, and the microphone is an accelerometer circuit. Mm-hmm. And the idea behind the catch box, it's not just foam. It's like squishy, like
Yeah,
Nerf
yeah.
foam.
Yeah,
TM, Nerf TM.
Yeah.
It's a squishy thing. And literally, you ask your question, and then when the next person wants to ask a question, you literally throw the box to them.
They raise their hand, and you throw the box to them, and it mutes the microphone on the way over there.
Once the circuit senses acceleration, it mutes the microphone.
Yep.
And once they catch it, there's a delayed release so that you don't hear the impact, and then it opens. The channel opens and the audio passes.
Now, like I said, typically it's the ones like we're talking about where you have your frequencyable microphone where you can change the frequencies on it. This one was locked down at 2.4 gigahertz.
2.4 gigahertz.
I'm not even joking.
Which is what?
Wireless.
Which is
Wi-Fi. It's Wi-Fi.
That is Wi-Fi.
So the first day where we were like 100 feet away from the hard wall with an air wall between us, Catchbox worked great. It was perfect. It was indemnable. Everything was awesome. The next day, when the air wall was opened in the hotel, and we had solid wall on one side, solid wall with quite obviously where the Wi-Fi connection and routers and extenders were in the wall. When it went to the right side of the room where we were the previous day, perfect, crystal clear.
And then when I went to the other side.
And when it went to the other side, it sounded like somebody was talking like a robot.
You know, and
it was like, there's nothing I can do. Nothing I can do.
With direct transmission, 2.4 gigahertz tends to lend to very poor quality audio.
Oh, absolutely.
And the reason that is 2.4 and 5 gigahertz work great for data transmission for ones and zeros because they burst. It's not a contiguous transmission.
That's right.
For audio to pass over a wireless frequency, you need a bandwidth with a wave, an electromagnetic wave, that's large enough and contiguous enough over distance to carry an uninterrupted audio signal in one direction.
Yeah.
That's why you don't see a lot of wireless microphones that operate in that. So I'm kind of surprised to hear that you had a belt pack in the 2.4.
It was fixed. And I've seen the ones that are cheaper where it was like ABC.
But those would still be in UHF or VHF.
Exactly.
But it was 2.4?
It was 2.4 gigahertz.
That's
fixed.
awful.
And I was like, what kind of monster would design a wireless microphone on the same frequency as every wireless internet transmitter?
Well, and I'll tell you where the biggest problem comes into that.
What kind of demon person does that?
Because there's a few manufacturers. Now, that is what we would definitely refer to as a consumer and prosumer device.
Phew. Like it was branded. It was branded. And it wasn't corporate branded. It was like name branded.
Well, still, the name brands still make different, levels of stuff within different verticals. Professional stuff, typically in the current day and age, work in the UHF spectrum, which is 470 to 700 megahertz. 470 to 700 megahertz. Now, recent events where certain pink wireless carriers have gone through an FCC incentive auction process and purchased a large portion of our 600 megahertz UHF spectrum.
Huge.
We now have less to deal with. So now it's left up to the audio manufacturers over the next 2.5 years to come out with new wireless systems that will play in whatever bandwidth is left. My prediction is that we're going to now have more professional systems that are operating in the high V, which is just below 470 megahertz, dancing around certain other FCC allocations.
Yeah, and there are so many different variables that come into play when it comes to be it wireless microphones, be it wireless video, be it wireless anything.
Wireless radio is even harder.
Oh, God, yes. But as we wrap this episode, if you were to give somebody just your average band on the street 3 tips for good quality, steady wireless audio.
To make it bulletproof.
Absolutely. What would it be? Like
Three things.
Three
things.
Could do it.
Okay. Understand your equipment. Understand where it operates within the electromagnetic spectrum.
Sure.
Don't say, well, I'm on Group 1, Channel 3. That means nothing.
Yeah, that's dead to me.
Understand what Group 1, Channel 3 means in the 3-digit dot 3-digit,
sure,
wireless frequency in the electromagnetic spectrum.
Yeah.
So that's
great. You're on Channel 13.
There you go. Well, that's number 1. Number 2, a good rule of thumb is that you should be no closer, or what's referred to as adjacent, as speaking of the 3-digit dot 3-digit number, as 0.25, which would be what, 25 thousandths?
Yep.
That is your minimum amount of separation.
That's right.
So let's say you have 300.000. The closest you should ever come is 300.250.
Yeah, and there's an octave separation within there with that stuff.
That's not even an octave. That's pretty close to a quarter wave.
Yeah.
Or 25 thousandths apart. That is the most narrow. For the most robust system possible, like to stay what's considered a full wave apart.
Okay.
So let's say you had 300 mega, let's talk real numbers here.
Yeah.
Like 478.000. Then the next closest frequency I want above that is 479.000.
Yeah.
That, to me, if I keep that minimum spacing, that is what's considered a more robust system, and that will give you the most bulletproof possible.
Yeah.
Number 3, communicate.
Okay.
Whether you're doing corporate, whether you're doing rock and roll, whatever, there's always somebody nearby you. And find out what they're using and how you can coordinate around them. And you can share airspace. Like, let's say if you're doing entertainment, like you're doing a festival. Well, not every band's up all at the same time, and
sure,
they all have different gear. Well, if you spec a good swatch of the electromagnetic spectrum for stage 1 and a good swatch for stage 2, then when every band comes in, they can have different channels operating at the same time.
You can give them something to tune into.
There you go. And that also allows you to. I wish you could have seen what I just saw. That also
ninja skills.
That also allows you.
No peek.
That also allows you to. Don't be peeking.
Don't peek on me.
That also, if you can define a spectrum per stage, that's great. A lot of times you don't get that luxury, but the idea is understand that the electromagnetic spectrum is a finite thing. And we all have to share it. And whether you're in a corporate environment with many rooms on top of each other, which if you do that, you understand what I mean. If you do, let's say you do entertainment, you do rock and roll, you're on a festival stage, band A and band B, are all going to play in the same, then what you need to understand is people need to be able to turn things on and off at the same time. The first act and the second act can all use the same wireless frequencies. They can literally tune their wireless stuff into the exact same frequencies, as long as the second act be on the same. And they're not going to be on at the same you have time. To control that. As long as the act that's following keeps their wireless transmitters powered off, while the first act is performing. And as soon as the first act is done, and you go into your set change, all those guys power their transmitters off. And then the second can power on. So literally, you could share. Let's say you have a bunch of 4, 5, 6, 8 piece bands.
Yep.
They could share the same 12 wireless frequencies for an entire festival stage, as long as everybody plays the game.
Okay.
And that requires communication.
Okay.
Communicate with, the people. Like if you're in a corporate environment, find the in-house guys, talk to them. Oh, there's another show moving in, talk to them. If you're on a festival stage, get all the different acts on the same page about who can turn what on when.
Yeah.
And because here's the thing, at the end of the day, the goal for everyone is to have a perfect show.
That's right.
And for that to happen, whatever wireless they bring in has to perform flawlessly. And when that is your goal, it behooves everyone to play the game. Yeah. Everyone has to play along, and that comes from communication.
Right. That's right.
Everyone has to, talk. Make friends and talk. In this business, in production, you have to do what I call making new best friends every week. Yeah. And that is the number one biggest thing.
Absolutely. And I couldn't even put it better than that. Thank you so much for coming on the show tonight, Jacob Delmar.
Yes, sir.
And sharing your knowledge about getting freaky with frequency coordination. The whole idea and concept of making sure that nobody steps on each other throughout a show, that production doesn't step on stage crew, doesn't step on in-ear monitors, doesn't step on wireless microphones. And even working in a corporate environment with numerous layers of a hotel and numerous properties in proximity to make sure that 200 plus wireless microphones are coordinated properly with in-house radios and local TV broadcasts, anything that could squash or squelch a show. And it's an incredible art. It really is.
And ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of great information out there. I highly recommend, if this is something that you struggle with or you're interested in getting into, lean on the professionals. Professional wireless systems out of Orlando. Yep. Those are kind of my idols. Those guys do amazing work, and they're great tools and products for the rest of us to use.
Good stuff.
There's a lot of stuff on YouTube that they put out, and dig into the FCC stuff. Understand what we're allowed to do, what we're not allowed to do.
Yeah.
Do your homework, do your research, don't oversell it.
Well, and, Jacob Delmar, thank you so much for coming on tonight, sharing your knowledge about this topic, your vast knowledge about it. And remember, everybody, while you're looking for this kind of stuff, stop on by the Talking Sound podcast, TalkingSoundShow.com, TalkingSoundPodcast.com are the websites. You'll find all kinds of articles from industry leaders such as Neve Audio, Canon cameras, all kinds of stuff, as well as educational and tutorial episodes. We are a part of the H2 Universal Network. And until next time, I am Chris Jordan, your host. And take care. Keep reaching for 11. We'll talk to you soon.
This is Talking Sound.